Mel is literally the most misunderstood champion of mid lane, and in this video I'm going to share all the secrets so you can always beat Mel in mid lane. You'll never lose to her again, and we're going to watch a VOD of Faker in the meantime that shows us exactly how to do it. So, the key to beating Mel is not playing Mel's game. What is Mel's game? Well, Mel is a really strong trader. She has very annoying spells because of her W blocking the damage, reflecting projectiles, and also giving her a shield. Her Q is insanely long range. Her auto attacks, her passive auto attacks, deal an insane amount of damage onto you, and she of course has the execute. Now, if you're going to be playing the heavy trading game where you're going to get really close to Mel, allow her to get auto attacks in, then she's going to be in a position where she can get complete lane control and she will dominate you. And there's zero counterplay because her W can reflect any of your trading that you do onto her, but you're going to put her in a position of basically permanent lane control. Now, what we have to understand about Mel is that her weaknesses are actually her spells. The reason why her spells are also her weakness is because of the fact that he got insanely long cooldowns. This is something that a lot of people don't know, but Mel's Q level 1 is 10 seconds CD. Her W is 35 seconds CD, which means once per wave, not even once per wave. Extremely long cooldown, and her E is 11-second cooldown. Now think about it. Whenever you're playing any type of champion into Mel, due to her insanely long cooldowns being 10 and 11 seconds, and her W only being a reactive spell, right? She basically only has 2 spells that she can use to manage the wave, and that means that we're going to be playing on the wave state. The way you beat Mel is not by playing the trading game. The way you beat Mel is by playing on the wave state. And you're going to see Faker do this in the example as well, where he's consistently going to be pushing the Mel in. And because of that, he's going to be in a position where Mel's forced to respond to minions. And while Mel's then responding to minions, we can then harass Mel, trade with her, and then we can put her under a little bit of threat. So we first need to establish wave control. And once we establish wave control, that's when we're in a position where we can actually start trading with Mel. And because you have wave control, trading with Mel at that point is also going to be good for you. Because if you trade equally, which sometimes might happen, you're in a position where you then can reset first before her. And then you're in a spot where you have favorable states on the reset. Because if you reset before the enemies, at least you can shove out the wave before the enemies. You get to lane faster. They lose more minions on the reset than you do. Hence, it's winning. So when playing versus Mel, right, if you lose the slow push, right, if she's pushing you in, what's going to happen is that you're going to be in a position where you're going to get hit onto last hits because you still need to last hit your minions that she's already lost it. You're going to then be in a position where she can just Q you for free or EQ you for free, or she can walk up close because you don't have the big minion wave that can defend yourself. And that's when you're really going to get nuked. So next time you play versus Mel, shift your mindset that you don't want to play on the trades to start off with. Start by playing off the waves. And when the waves are in a good spot, that's when you turn towards trading, and that's when you can start winning. So a big part to understand about Mel is that her damage comes from 2 key sources. Source number 1 is her Q. If she can land a big Q, that's where a lot of damage comes from. And her passive auto attacks. So the wave state is going to prevent her from walking up because you got minions defending yourself. But if she ever gets super close, you're then in a position where you can stand your ground with the minions. Or you can just kite it away because you got the wave control where if she walks too deep, she's going to get hit by minions. Another key thing to keep in mind, right, is her Q. You can bait out her Q. We saw Faker do it here in this specific example when he walks to the lane here. The way you do that is by acting as if you walk forward and then walking towards the side. Sometimes you get hit by one specific instance of it, but you can also just fake last hits. You got to keep in mind that Mel wants to use her Q onto your last hit, which is going to put her in a position where she can have an easier time landing the spell, because the spell has a pretty big delay. Now, the main way that people lose to Mel, especially post level 6, is if they get like just hit by a full combo, right? You don't want to get yourself too close to Mel. Don't really get too close into auto attack range unless you're playing a melee champion. Then of course you find a little bit more of those positions. But as a range champ, definitely stay outside of her auto attack range. Play your own ranges. And I took a vote here from Ahri into Mel because Ahri is one of these champs that has projectiles, which is usually something that Mel has a good time into because she can just reflect these projectiles. And you see what Faker does really well is he tries to bait out the Q. He recognizes that he's got to swap up his movement, dodges out on the spells, and now he can play offense as defense on the wave. And by pushing Mel in, Mel's going to be in a bit of trouble. Pre-Lost Chapter, Mel also has some mana cost issues. And you see that you can also then abuse that. And because you generally have shorter cooldowns as Mel in the early lane, and she has the mana issues, it's just really hard for Mel to actually land any spells and get lane control pre-6. The final thing to note is her W. Baiting out her W can be a very effective tool for you to get control of the lane because the cooldown is so incredibly long. 35 seconds, keep that in mind, of course. You saw what Faker did there. He baited out the Mel W by throwing the charm besides the Mel, which incentivized Mel to use her W. And then of course, you get your spell back before Mel does, and that's when you're in a position where you can get full control because the cooldown is so incredibly long. Baiting out Mel spells in generally is so insanely effective because of the fact that her cooldowns are so long. If you can bait out 1 or 2 spells, you can get complete lane control. And it's basically, Mel needs to play really poised and perfect to get control of the lane. And you only see that level of Mel gameplay like GM+. Before that, it's super easy to always bait out Mel spells and get control of the lane. And you don't need to interact with her, guys. Especially once you get towards this level 7 point where Mel gets lost chapter. This is the point where you're going to need to be very careful interacting with the Mel. You especially want to just play on pushing out the wave, forcing her to respond, and moving first. And you can do that because if she decides to use her spells onto wave to get lane control by pushing the wave in, your cooldowns are shorter, so you get control of the lane. And if she decides to trade onto you, you can play on the wave and you can force her to respond. So you're playing the wave game into Mel, and less so the trading game. And only when the wave game is properly done, that's when we can consistently trade into Mel and win. And that is why Mel is insanely misunderstood, because every single time that I see people play into this champion, they always play the trading game. No shit, you're going to get fucking blasted. This champion is built to deny trading. And then she is, of course, going to be extremely frustrating to play against. Now, if you struggle versus Mel, you probably also struggle versus Akshan. So check out this video right here that shows the Akshan matchup.